Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cold Reads. I am your host, Laura Nicole, and this show is brought to you by Resonant Audiobook Solutions. This is episode 22, which is kind of amazing. We are most of the way through the month of August. I have a cat hair in my nose. Thanks, cats. Anyway. So, with me today, I have Marleigh Norton returning.
Hello.
And Marleigh, go ahead and tell people who you are and what you do.
My name is Marleigh Norton, and I'm a voice actor, and I work primarily with Pendant Productions and the Post-Meridian Radio Players, which is a live radio group. You know, the old-timey stuff with the live Foley and stuff like that.
I know. I want to go see a live show. Mm-hmm. And then we have a new player in our cast tonight, my friend Julia B. Ellingboe.
Hello.
And Julia, can you introduce yourself and tell people what you do?
Sure. I am, excuse me, I'm a writer, editor, tabletop role-playing game designer. I have been doing a lot of supplements for various Kickstarters, like Kickstarters for Magpie Games. I did one recently for Lovecraft-esque, which is a Lovecraft, I don't want to say kindler, gentler Lovecraft, but it's, I've done, more recently, I wrote a short game in an anthology called #Feminism. Mm-hmm. And most recently, not yet released, I did some work for Masks through Magpie Games. I did a little campaign frame for that. And then others that I'll compile later. And then by day, I hire people. I'm a human resources manager.
That's awesome. Okay, so to give everybody a quick rundown of what we do, because I should be doing this before every show, and I forget. So Cold Reads is a show where I ask amazingly talented people, writers, voice actors, people who've been interested in lending their voice to an audiobook, and I say, hey, 15 minutes before my show, I'm going to send you a script and a Google Hangouts link, and you're going to come and read a part. And that's essentially what this is. We're doing a cold read of a story. Right now, we are doing Stonebriar Casefiles. We are on part 2 of chapter 16, which I'm really excited about. Now, this chapter calls for many more people than we have. So we're all going to be doubling and sometimes tripling up on lines. So for Julia, you are going to be playing the parts of Valena the Centaur, who is listed in yellow, Vervain Oakroot, who is listed in a kind of a darker pink, and Jack Haggerty Jr., who is listed in a dark orange. Marleigh is going to be reading the part of Rixon Amberstone, who is in a light orange, and Turek, who is listed in green, and has quite a bit to say because he's going to tell us all about what happened on his part of the journey.
All the exposition.
All the expedition. He gets to be Hermione. In this part of the book, and I'm going to play everybody else because I'm a masochist. So let me go ahead and do as I always do and share the script to everyone. And if my cast is ready, verbal yeses are good.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, then we are going to go ahead and get started with part 2 of chapter 16. To recap, Beatrix Stonebriar has successfully brought Valena and her brother Baltier to Troll's Hollow to donate her blood towards the counter curse. However, as they were crossing into the troll lands, they noticed that the color of the forest was quite different than what it had been. Instead of the fall colors of burnt orange and greens and reds and golds, it was a monochromatic Pepto-Bismol pink. Kind of gross, in my opinion. So they knew that something had happened, and the curse had started to spread. So they are rushing against time. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I looked at her again and met her eye. If you're not ready, we do not have to do this right now.
No, I am ready. I'm just...
Goblo approached, dagger and vial in the same hand. It is acceptable to embrace your fear, young one. Fear makes us cautious and can save lives. Give me your hand. She complied and placed her tanned hands into his blue ones. He cupped her hands in his. All of us want to do what is right. Are you ready to help protect your people? She started hesitantly. I heaved with her as she took a deep breath.
Yes. I will give you everything to protect our home.
That is what I needed to hear. The troll's bottom hand moved slightly, and Velena's initial flinch caused me to roll onto my bad shoulder. Like her, I was ready for this whole ordeal to be over with. I needed to focus on something other than my pain. So I watched as drops of hot blood trickled down the blade that Goblo held into the vial at the bottom of the knife. Almost done, child, he soothed. I found that he was looking at me. I soon figured out why. I had the best vantage point of the vial. Okay, that's enough. Slowly, Velena, Goblo told her as he removed the blade. We do not want to have a larger cut than necessary. Baltier finally spoke up. Well done, sister. You are a true mare of the herd now. His voice practically beamed with pride. If I was to be honest with myself, I was proud of the girl too. I think Namina would have liked you as well. She also was called upon to step outside of the herd and to take on duties no other could face. The filly's smile was infectious, until Marka started to bandage her wound. The girl grimaced for a moment as the smell of peat moss filled the air around us. I knew it was to keep the wound clean, but I also knew from experience that it stung like a... Well, you get the idea.
Where is she?
Rickson called from the hallway. He flew into the room faster than I had known him to, with Vervain close behind him.
The gatekeeper told us you were injured.
It is much worse than we thought. We need to get you taken care of, dear.
Vervain was calling me dear? Who are you, and what have you done with Madame Oakroot?
Oh, hush, you ingrate. Do you think I am always crotchety and ill-tempered?
It's still good to know you're still you. I was worried there for a moment. I smiled weakly. Velena started to loosen the bandolier, but was having a difficult time just using one hand.
Don't worry about it,
said Rickson.
We can unfasten it. Turek, we will bring her back to my workbench. Can you carry her? Sure thing.
When the buckles were loosened, he slid my litter from its place and let me rest in his hands. Don't you two leave without saying goodbye to me, I called to the centaurs. We will show them our hospitality until then, Goblo assured us. Turek took me out of the room then took me out of the room then, and we set off about the messy business of putting my body back together. I will spare you the details of my repair. Let's say there was no time for painkillers, and there were more than a few curses and insults and general incomprehensible statements that came flying out of my mouth when the gag fell out. I thought Vervain was going to slap me more than once. At times, I was hoping she would, or maybe Rickson could have knocked me out. But then again, considering how many times I had blacked out over the past few days, I suppose this was the best course of action. After all the commotion that was my voice died down, and I was finally able to make sense of the world, I found that only Turek remained in the room with me. Did Eric come back yet? He shook his head. He must have stayed then.
That's what we're thinking. We heard the sentencing out here, too.
His face was more grim than I had ever seen, even when Eric and I told him that we were leaving for the human world. Does the boy know?
Jack's been in his room. I think he knows. He might have known even before she left. We've had a boundary bracelet on him in case he decides to run for it.
I raised my eyebrows in panic. Has anyone checked on him? We don't want him to do anything stupid.
I looked in on him just before we started working with Anonymity.
I asked a question with my eyes.
Oh, she's the naiad that gave her steam for the potion.
I see. How did you all figure that one out, by the way? When I saw how you were going about it, collecting her essence, it seemed like perfect sense, but coming up with that solution could not have been easy.
Well, a lot has happened in the last day and a half. The giants were hard to bring out of their mountains. They do not speak common tongue much anymore. I had to remember some of the old Norse that we were taught from the last dwarven emissaries that came down. Anyway, once I told them that all I needed was a drop and I would leave them in peace, one of them came out. It was an adolescent. It was already bleeding about the face. I'm not really sure how he got those wounds. Honestly, it looked like acne.
Ew, I cringed.
You muck around with trolls, goblins, blood, and investigate crime scenes for a living, and acne makes you squeamish?
He gave me a mocking smile. Listen, I have seen enough humans pick at their faces and those infected boils. It freaks me out that they have these things growing on their faces that will at some point explode. My stomach started to roil at the thought.
All right, let's move on before you get sick on me.
Thank you. I tried to get up. When Turek attempted to give me his finger to brace myself on, I pushed it away. I wanted to do it myself. Once I actually gained my balance and sat upright, he got me a folded cloth to rest on.
Okay, so where were we? All right, so after that, I was back at the Hollow before anyone. Rickson and Gablo had worked out the basic formula to neutralize the effects of the curse. They were like one mind and against each other at the same time. It was intriguing to watch them go back and forth, like they had been colleagues all along. Once they figured it out, Vervain was at the gate screaming about the wood. When we got up there, we noticed the discoloration.
Tell me about it. I felt like I was walking into a Pepto-Bismol forest. I shuddered at the thought.
What's that stuff for, anyway?
Turek asked. Another time, Turek. So what happened?
Right, well, the potion had started to leak into the ground, not enough to affect the curse, although the memorial for the dead wildlings started to grow exponentially. I recommended uprooting them, but I was outvoted by all the Fae. Instead, we scooped out all the liquid into a cauldron. Within hours, it had leaked out of the bottom. We found several thicker cauldrons, which seemed to hold it for about 4 or 5 hours at a time.
So that's what the Tower of Cauldrons was outside. Okay, so what will happen when the potion is done?
Well, we're waiting for Eric to come back so that we can get the elf blood, and then it has to set for an hour. Once it is mixed, we try mixing the two things together and go from there.
That doesn't sound very promising. I was admitting it more to myself than anything.
No, it does not. But what other choice do we have? I do not think anyone relishes the thought of drinking that concoction and then getting cut down.
The call came before I realized who might want to do such a thing. The voices were a cacophony of, "No, don't! Are you mad?" and so on. I tested the strength of my wings and found that I was able to support my own weight, if somewhat painfully. At least I wasn't blinded by it, as I was before all of my bones had been set and realigned. Turek and I made our way to the entrance of Troll's Hollow. He had to scale the walls and climb over the ceiling to get free of the crowd. I was grateful for my size and the ability to fly at that point. When I finally got out to see what had happened, Jack was on the ground. His knees were bent under him, while his arms supported his upper body. The way his stomach was pulsing, it seemed like it was going into survival mode, attempting to reject what the stupid kid had just done. "Jack!" I asked, when it seemed that he had finally gained control of his stomach and not allowing the poisonous curse to come back up. I was eye level with him. The skin under his nails and the tips of his fingers had begun to change to the same fluorescent color as the rest of the wood's foliage.
"Beatrix,"
he sobbed.
"She's gone. Everything that we've done has been a mess. Now, the only thing that I did all of this for is gone." "I know what the elves were singing. I had to learn common Elvish to speak to her father."
He looked up at me then. His eyes were bloodshot with tears, and the color of his irises were chrysanthemum.
"This is the only way I can set the rest of it right. Kill me now before it is too late."
"No!" came another voice from beyond the gate. And that is chapter 16. That was awesome, guys.
Yay!
Or ladies. Dudes is the gender neutral thing.
Folks
is another one.
People. Actors.
Friends.
Yeah. Friends. Definitely friends.
Friends. I like that one.
So what did you all think?
That was fun.
Yeah. I don't usually get to trot out my Rennian-esque accent, so that's fun.
Yeah, it's always fun when you get to really kind of stretch your repertoire. Like Paul was saying yesterday, sometimes you need a few more lines to really get the character voice under control. And I could hear it, like after the first couple of lines, you really like, okay, you know how Turek's gonna speak.
I'm used to having multiple takes, so like I warm up the character voice. So that's one of the challenges of the cold reads.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a fun challenge, though. Yeah. Especially if you can have long sequences like that. For Julia, you didn't really have as much time to get into the voice of your characters. Is this the first time that you've done any voice acting?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I know you've done some singing on some albums. I just wasn't sure if you'd done voice acting before or not.
Yes, I have.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I am extremely grateful for you both, and especially that none of us fell into the habit of female narrators when narrating male parts of reaching far deep into the baritone of our voices and hurting ourselves, because that's a thing that doesn't sound nice to the listener.
Yeah, I try and pitch down low, but like at some point you hit the bottom of your range and you need to be able to express even when you pitch down, or, you know, same problem as when I pitch up is the top end of my range and I still need to be able to make the voice dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and for me, I noticed that there is a difference in the way that words come out depending on the kind of person I'm playing. So if I'm playing a very gentle kind of voice, I find that it's all in here. It's all very rounded in the mouth. Whereas if I'm playing a male character, I'm pushing everything out. And I think that's just because of the way that we see these characters, or we hear them in our minds, and so we try to replicate it. Any other thoughts before I give you both the floor to say where people can find your stuff? No? Okay. Well, Marleigh, let's start with you. And where can people find you online?
Yes, I'm Marleigh Norton on Twitter at Marleigh, M-A-R-L-E-I-G-H. And then my portfolio is at web.mit.edu/Marleigh, M-A-R-L-E-I-G-H.
Okay,
great. And Julia, where can people find your stuff online?
All over the place. But you could reach me at my Twitter, which is at Queen of Pirates, with of spelled O-V.
Like you do.
Yeah, like when somebody already has Queen of Pirates and just really want that. So
when a pirate says "of," it doesn't sound like an F.
Right. Yeah, it worked out. It worked out for me. I feel bad.
Queen of Pirates.
Queen OF Pirates. You know, too bad for them.
Yeah. Great. And any other links we will be putting in the show notes. As for this podcast, if you would like to be on Cold Reads as a voice actor or as a writer and submit a short story, you can go ahead and send me an email. The email is Laura Nicole Audio, that is LauraNicole, audio, AUDIO, @gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @LNicoleAudio. Resonant Moon Audiobook Solutions is online at resonantmoon.com. You can also join the group on Facebook, which is facebook.com/groups/Cold Reads, all one word. If you want spoilers for Stonebriar Casefiles, the link to the book is in the show notes. It is available in paperback and ebook. This work is covered under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means that you can download it, you can share it, you can repost it. Just don't edit it because it's perfect the way it is, just like you. And make sure that you link back to this YouTube page. If you like what I'm doing and you would like to follow for, after the dog days of podcasting when I'm not posting every day, to find out when I'm doing another episode, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I get really excited every single time somebody subscribes. It makes me super happy. And I just fell down the stairs earlier today, so I'm in a lot of pain. So make me happy. Subscribe. Give me a reason to smile. That's a little bit of oversharing, but I do that all the time. I want to thank my guests very much for being on the show, and thank all of you for watching. And at the end of the night, I have my two guests say, "Good night, everybody."
Good night, everybody.
Oh, you're perfect. Good night, everybody.